Hello and welcome to the Help My Wealth podcast, Money Rules or Money Rules. Here at Help My Wealth, we are all about empowering financial success in our community of listeners. We hope you find today's topic both informative and helpful. Hi and welcome back to the Help My Wealth podcast, Money Rules, Money Rules. I'm your host, Stephen Logan, and with me as always is Hamish Ferguson. Hamish, thank you for coming.
Not a problem.
And today we have our special guest is Matilda Barrass. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Tilly, we've got a little bit of a different night tonight because, as we were talking about before, a lot of our guests have probably been a little bit older than yourself, all right? So, but we really thought that tonight it'd be great to have somebody that's got a little bit more youth that is actually closer to probably a lot of the people's age that we're actually talking to. And I've really enjoyed watching your career so far. So a little bit about Tilly. We met in 2019 towards the end of your double degree. Is that right? What were your majors again?
I did business and finance. So I majored in innovation entrepreneurship and also finance was the major. Mm-hmm. Commerce was the other degree.
Yep. And then towards the end of that, you came to us as an intern, finishing up your degree. You worked with us for probably only about 6 months. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
And then moved on with a graduate program with Commonwealth Bank.
Correct.
Yep. And currently you're working in their property development area. Is that right?
Yes. So I'm a financial analyst and I specialise in property development and investment.
Okay. And you've worked in a couple of different areas of the bank?
Yes. On the graduate program, I did get to rotate around various different areas, which was amazing to see all the different areas and how large the bank is. You see it's large, but internally massive.
So, look, we've started talking about this a little bit already, but I guess tell us a little bit about your financial journey so far, a little bit about your background, family, your relationship with money, possibly before you were at uni and leading into uni and into now.
Yep. So I think what I wanted to start by saying is I don't really know where it came from, but I always was very organised with my money, very in control of my money. I didn't really know as a child my parents' financial position or how they controlled their finances or anything like that. It was only later in my life as I delved into the financial world that I became aware of their situation. But they always made comment to how well I paid back anything that I'd borrowed. For example, bought a magazine or gone down to the shops, bought lollies. I was always very good at saving. It just kind of had that innate nature to save. And that has obviously evolved into my adult life as well. I also then bringing that into the school world, I guess, going back there. I was always quite good at maths. It just kind of was a strong point for me. And that obviously helped my interest in maths, doing good at it, so you kind of want to keep going. But I was always frustrated as well in maths class how little they taught you about the world and the real world of finance. And I do remember one example that we did in class was how to buy your first car. So I find that a very worldly example and actually made sense in the real world once you get out of school. And I really appreciated that exercise. And I believe school should do that more. So that always frustrated me a bit. And as I did mention earlier, I can't really go on without recognising my privilege that was a topic at school, buying your first car, that I do have that privilege to have been able to borrow off my parents, even if it was a couple of dollars for a magazine. I do come from a privileged background, so I have to acknowledge that. But in saying that as well, carried on from having good control. I was good at saving, then into my teenage life and my adult life. I naturally sorted my money into the buckets that everybody talks about, and everybody gets that general advice, I would say, to go into buckets. I have the rainy day bucket, the savings bucket, the travel bucket, the everyday spend bucket. I naturally just had that. So that was good. And I always wanted to save and I always wanted to check on my finances, see how they were going. And I always had big goals as well, which really helped with those buckets and to sort the buckets as well into goals. For example, travels, trips. I know we're speaking about house and different investments and everything like that. For me, it actually turned a little bit problematic with how intense I was with watching my money. I would check my accounts every day, and not that I was in a poor financial situation or stressed about the actual finances, but the amount I was overthinking it and overlooking into it became an issue, and that was picked up by someone quite close to me, and I started to chill a bit more.
Okay.
And so I feel like I'm in a very good place now where I consciously watch it. I'm always in control. I'm very aware, have those big goals and save for them, but it's not an overthinking pace anymore.
I actually knew someone that had a diary, and they would carry it with them, and they would write down every single thing they spent. So if you're not doing that,
no,
then,
not that far.
if you're not going that far, then you're not too bad.
Yes, not that far.
I wanted to touch on one of the things you talked about at school, because that's something we've brought up here before, is that there's only so much that you can fit into the school curriculum, and it's quite hard. And when it comes to finances, they do the macro really well. Like you go and you do economics at school or whatever else, and it's about the government and about levers and how things change and those sort of larger type things. But the actual how to balance your own books, how to save your own money, how to, buy a car or to go and fill out a form for, a bank loan, or even to understand what all the little facets are of that, just doesn't really get touched, does it?
Totally agree with that. And it was, like I said, a massive frustration for me, and understand there's curriculum that they need to abide by, but I definitely think across maths and many other subjects, I definitely think there could be a lot more worldly experience. And like you said, where do we even start? If you do want to start looking at a home loan or a car loan or anything, where do you even find those forms? They don't teach you.
No, and you understand the concept of an interest rate, but how does it actually work? How can you calculate it? How do you do it? That I think people, it gets a bit far away from where they are, unless they have an actual interest in it themselves and they actually do their own research and study. And that's one of the things where Help My Wealth has come in, is that we're trying to provide that financial literacy, at that sort of level that the average Australian has missed and has to learn through life.
Yes.
So rather than learning through life, actually, get those basics and get them down pat.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. School is a miss, and appreciate that there are podcasts out there that hopefully people are aware of that can help. I think my worldly knowledge started at university. As I said, I chose business and commerce, so very in the financial world. But it would be a lot slower for the people that don't choose those subjects, and there's many others out there. So the majority would be a lot slower at learning that financial literacy, which is crucial to get through life.
So have you worked out where this discipline came from yet? When you look at your parents a little bit older now, do you go, oh, it's mum or it's dad? Or
Dad's definitely, sorry mum, but dad is definitely the financial one. Mum will admit that. He is very good at accounts, but I never had that insight when I was living with them and when I was a child. So I really don't understand where it comes from. I guess I would have to say dad, so thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
But
Look, it's true. Look, I've got children. I can say there's one in particular, for instance, who has savings accounts, and she'll say something like, "Oh, I don't have any money," and I'll be like, "Yeah, I know that's not true, because you've got a really good job and you're really good at saving," and she'll be like, "Oh, no, that's set aside." Like, okay, so it's set aside. It's not that you don't have money, it's that you know exactly where it is and what it's for and what it's going to be used for in the future.
That's me at the moment. I'll probably embarrass myself, but I tell my friends that I'm pretending to be broke at the moment because my money's set aside, but I spell it BROQUE. So I'm broke.
Very good, very good.
I think you could start a trend with that.
Yeah, maybe.
So you grew up in Sydney, all right?
Yes.
And then you spent your teenage years mainly in the Hunter Valley, is that right?
Yeah.
And then moved up to Port Stephens, Shoal Bay, for a little while there while you were at uni, and then back to Newcastle, is that right?
Yes, that is hard.
And, through that journey, did life's journey around money, did that change much for you?
It probably did when I recognised the areas that we lived, maybe in that sense. And when I got older and could understand those more macro level topics and everything. Like looking back, I was born in the northern beaches of Sydney. You look at northern beaches of Sydney now, you're locked out. It's multi-millions. It's gone crazy. We got out for other reasons than that. Like that was obviously a parent's decision. I was very young. I left there in year 2, but I still call it home. And then you look at going out to the vineyards, obviously another quite affluent area around there, and getting jobs around. Being a teenager there was horrible, not near the beach. So definitely in that aspect, the networks you have, the schools that you can go to, again, talking to the privilege that I did have for being able to move around like that. And I guess in those moves, probably more around the end of my Hunter Valley living years, moving into Shoal Bay is probably the ages that was around year 10, 11, 12. I probably started to have a bit more of an insight into my parents' situation, and definitely got more insight into what made them move and the financial aspects of moving. And we had a vineyard, so selling that vineyard, so that kind of process, I definitely was more aware of it, and I definitely was more open to those topics. Definitely later teenage years.
Yeah,
for sure.
okay, fair enough.
So does that mean you're really good at choosing wine at parties? Or?
No, one of my best friends is in the wine industry. Shout out to Grace. She's incredible. Whenever I go to dinner with her, I'm like, you pick. I'm blind. It's great. I wish I could say I was.
So coming to the end of uni, and one of the things that I remember when we worked together was that, you actually hadn't even finished uni yet, and you bought your first home.
Correct.
All right. So tell us a little bit about that in the terms of, if you'd gone back 6 months earlier, did you think that buying a home like that was possible? And where was that sort of moment where you went, oh, okay, I might be able to do this? Do you remember that time very well?
I always finance, like I said, it innately came to me that I always wanted to be very sound financially. And I definitely do remember, I think I was around 18 and I wanted a house at 18. Again, privilege I had. I do distinctly remember someone in the year above me bought a house at 18. And I was blown away. I was like, that needs to be me. So I was a little bit later. I was 21. I was still at uni. But definitely had that moment, I suppose, at 18, that this is what I really wanted. I saw it as a great investment. Obviously, my parents, like with the moves, had bought and sold quite a few places. My auntie and uncle have used property as investments as well. So I had been around it a lot, and obviously just physically having somewhere to live, like that was my main drive for wanting a home, was my place of residence. I didn't want to rent.
So do you remember any stories growing up about your family having investment properties and them complaining about tenants or, anything like that? No? Okay.
No, it's more, I get stories now, but it's more the buying and the selling and the investment and the drive behind that, and more the numbers behind it, rather than, I didn't really get tenant stories or anything like that.
Because one of the things that I quite often reflect on is when people come in and they want to talk about, hey, I want to do this, and you get this classic conversation, shares versus property. And then if somebody was to say, for example, shares, the more you dig in, the more they usually tell you that that's what they've been around all their life, or they've been around property all their life. So it becomes this natural decision that, I just need to follow what they did, So there's possibly a little bit in that there for you.
I'd probably say that. And I feel like everyone definitely talks to the great Australian dream of having your own home. I feel like, and more physically, you drive around property all the time. You see other people's houses every day wherever you go. But shares is more that mythical world thing. I'm lucky enough to have both. Shares was definitely a later decision, and maybe it seems more risky. I definitely saw it as more risky, being not present. It's not physically there like home is. But definitely did grow up with more property than shares.
I want to just touch back on what you said, because you sort of brushed over it a little bit, I think. And you're 21 years old and you've purchased your own home. And for listeners out there, you've mentioned a couple of times that you came from a privileged background, so it'd be easy for them to think that mum and dad helped you out. So I want to ask you, that question: did mum and dad help you out, or did you and your partner do it, yourselves?
No, so we had no help from family, apart from obviously support in the research.
But no financial,
no financial support. We did do it all on our own, and I guess goes back to having those big dreams, big goals. big savings accounts, like having those dedicated.
So what was the
savings
deposit
account.
you had to have by that age, at age 21, to be able to do this?
Oh, I'm very good at finance, but memory, not so much. I'd say it close to 60,000, I'm thinking.
Yep. So, you had to, sort of say that between the two of you.
Yes.
How did you achieve that, in that time between when you started working to when you were 21 at uni and doing all of that? I mean, I'm assuming you had a job?
Yes, I had a job, yes. At the time I was working in hospitality, as most people do start. I think, again, going back to that innate nature, I always had a savings account.
Yep.
While I am here saying have goals for those savings account, I just always had a savings account. I'd always be putting money even if there wasn't a goal towards it. And then obviously, like I said, at that age 18, I knew I really wanted to buy a house, and I just kept putting away savings. I was never too strict on myself. I still wanted to live my life, do things with my friends, go on trips, etc. But yeah, definitely having the savings account, and then my partner at the time, ended up being a goal for the both of us, and that obviously helped a great deal having two incomes. Definitely, obviously, just helps a lot more. But yeah, just consistently savings, and like how we did discuss before the recording started, that you can do it all. Again, privilege, but I mentioned previously I did travel before within the 6 months before actually purchasing a home. So I moved abroad for 5 months, and at the start of that I did 3 weeks around Europe, which costs in the very expensive, almost $20,000 in 3 weeks. So there was a lot of savings, and there was a lot of buckets, like travel and then my moving abroad piece and then the house piece as well. So having those dedicated savings and making sure money was flowing in there.
So what did your friends say to you? So obviously you've got other friends that are 21, 22, 20. All of a sudden you purchase a house, they're looking at their savings account, which has, got $400 or $500 in it if they're lucky. What was their comment to you? Did they sort of, not understand how you could have achieved that?
Yep. Everyone was shocked in a good way, like not shocked like, oh, how could you do it? They were more, and I actually found it actually made me a little bit upset because a lot of people got very disappointed in themselves after seeing what me and my partner at the time had done together. And a lot of couples, we had a lot of couple friends that had been together in a similar time frame and everything, and they hadn't got that far yet. So it did make me a bit upset because people, were disappointed in themselves, but it gave them the hunger to want to go and do that. And now most of my friends that were around at that time have their own property or have purchased off the plan or house and land package. So it definitely drove the friends. Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's a key, and Hamish and I have talked about that before, is that once you know that it's possible, then all of a sudden you can achieve it.
Absolutely.
It's odd, isn't it? When I first sat down when I was young and the idea of buying a house, I sat down with a mortgage broker, happened to be Hamish. He was also young at that time. And he was very new in the game at that time. I think it might have even been your first year that you were doing mortgage broker for.
Yeah.
But to actually sit there and go, okay, there's going to be a bit of pain to achieve this. There's going to have to be a lot of sacrifice, a lot of extra shifts, a lot of extra work for both myself and my partner. But to actually go, oh, hang on, this is possible. And then it can be achieved.
Yeah, I think touching on that, I probably should give credit to Hamish and the team, because I did go through Hamish and the team, and even I actually tell a lot of my friends that, like I said, since we bought, they had the hunger as well. Going to see a mortgage broker for that reason, even in itself, to show you are able to do this is incredible. And I don't know, some people, just have this perception that it's really hard, the banks are never going to accept me, or I'm not sure, but there's more option than the big four banks, and 100%. The mortgage broker can absolutely help tailor things to your scenario and find all the buffers that you need, or the grants that you're accessible for, certain income that you're allowed to include, not allowed to include. So the knowledge, we were talking about the knowledge before, having the knowledge to drive that really just unlocks it. And I think it is a scary step to actually ask for the help, to acknowledge, okay, this is a goal of mine. People get scared, I suppose, of big goals, but write it down or something.
I think they're also a little bit embarrassed that someone's going to go, no.
True.
Not
is.
you. You can't do. Sorry. Next. But like, you know, for instance, it's amazing how often you get someone like a mortgage broker or a professional in, and they say to you, right, get rid of that credit card. Can you increase your income by an extra, you know, between you $10,000 a year? So when it comes to this financial year, I want to see, you know, this amount of money. If you can do those two things, we can do this.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden you're like, I can do that. That's possible. It's actually able to be done.
Yeah, I like how you broke it down there as well. Like breaking it down is good. You look at the price of a house and people just go, oh, no, never. Yeah. But if you do break it down into you need to work an extra day, like if it's in hospitality, you need to pick up that overtime shift once a week.
Yep.
And then you're there. Like,
100%.
So breaking it down and having someone with the knowledge to pass that on is so powerful.
Even I had a young couple that I know recently who are about to purchase their home. They're in negotiating at the moment, and the interest rates are scaring them because they're going up and they're going up, and they're, you know, talking to their mortgage broker, and they're reevaluating how much it's going to be to pay back. And my comment to him was, he's a teacher, and I said, okay, so you can't change your teaching wage, but you could definitely go and do tutoring. You know, how long could you tutor for? Could you tutor for, you know, if interest rates stay high for the next year, could you tutor for the next year? So many, you know, people per week, per month, per whatever. And all of a sudden he went, no, I can do that. So, okay, so it's not an issue. When interest rates come down, you can then decide, I'm going to stop tutoring and have some more free time, or I'm going to keep doing it and actually use that money to save or to pay the house off or to do whatever they want to do. But
get next, maybe.
That's right. Go for an investment property or something else. So, you know, I think that's the key, isn't it? It's getting the knowledge. And for your friends, having you as an example, which I can see you shy away from almost as I say that. But having you as an example, you and your partner go, okay, that's possible. I can do that. We can achieve that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on the point as well, I know we were speaking about interest rates before, people do get scared, but there's so many options out there as well. You might not be able to get your dream home as your first home. You might, see a mortgage broker and figure it out that maybe all you can do is get a investment property past Musselbrook or something, and like gets you in the game, and then you're in the equity game, pending the market going back up. I think just getting in the market is an amazing step, and then knowing it doesn't have to be perfect the first time, and you might not even live in it, and that might not have been something you wanted to think about previously, but a mortgage broker's brought that to your opinion just to get in the game, knowing down the track you can. And on interest rates as well, the banks won't give you a loan if you can't service it. So if you're scared you're not going to be able to afford it, they shouldn't. No one should be giving you a loan knowing you can't afford it. That's against whatever the rules are. And they put buffers on it as well. So when you try and service it, and you should put buffers on your own income, your savings, have the buffers there, and if you do your own little calculation. So I think it seems scary at the moment, the interest rates, but as we were discussing before, it all ebbs and flows. It comes out in the wash. Definitely see someone with the knowledge that can make you comfortable with that. It is a big decision, but knowledge gives you power and comfort and leverage, I suppose.
And if I go back and put on my, my property investor hat, I've had a couple now of people from Sydney who are younger, and they wanted to buy their house, and they were like, I can't afford to buy in Sydney, like anywhere in Sydney.
Absolutely.
Forget about going out west. I just can't buy in Sydney, And the more I try and save, the faster the houses are going up, and all of a sudden my savings is no longer even the deposit that I require. And so for them, we're actually able to put them into an investment property outside of Sydney, like in Brisbane or in Perth or in somewhere else, where they can actually get into the market and allow their equity to grow. So when they are ready to buy the house in Sydney, they can do it.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm totally all for that. It is a bit scary going off the plan you thought you'd be at, but it might take a little bit longer to get there. But my opinion is getting in the game as fast as you can is the best way to go.
So I'm going to go off script a little bit here, Tilly.
Okay.
All right. So, during that time when you were at uni, trying to save, be disciplined, there must have been times though where you had to say no to things?
Yeah, I'm probably experiencing that more now than back in that period. I guess to explain that, now I've since sold said property that we're discussing this purchase, and now I'm planning for a potentially 2-year stint overseas, and I have also secured a apartment off the plan. And that's more what I've actually had to realise now is it's okay to say no. It's okay to not be, I'm a big people pleaser, and to have that discipline again, like outside of money potentially. And yeah, say no to the friends, say no to things you genuinely don't want to do, but you go and spend your time, potentially money and effort. And yeah, definitely saying no to that cocktail is very hard, but yeah, absolutely you've got to say no.
So how have you developed that, I call it that resilience or that ability to say no? What's that? What goes on in your head when you're trying to do those things?
I actually think it doesn't come from a financial place. It's definitely, I have had a lot of growth in the past 6 to 12 months, and it actually comes, I suppose, from the self-confidence, not caring what other people think as much, not being that people pleaser. And at the end of the day, you're in this life for you. You're in this for your happiness to an extent. Like I feel like I am a kind person, and I feel like people need to be treated with kindness. There needs to be a lot more kindness in the world. But if you've got that base level of kindness, and you know you're doing the right thing, you're not doing anything wrong, I think the confidence to stand up for yourself and say no to things, and knowing if a certain situation is going to drain you, don't go. So I think it comes a lot more, I guess, healing the mind and being confident in yourself and the divine timing of the world and everything. So it's definitely more a woo-woo topic is probably where it's come from.
A woo-woo topic.
Yeah, it's a bit up there and spiritual. I don't know. People get a bit funny going into that kind of topic, but that's, for me, that's generally where it's come from, having a bit more confidence in myself to say no and to stand up for myself. I've done a lot more of that recently, and I guess it goes back to the discipline. I had it in finance. I didn't have it emotionally, and it's coming through emotionally now.
Yeah, look, and thanks for your honesty.
Yeah,
all right,
absolutely.
So one of the things that, we've found is just that it seems like financial literacy is dropping. All right. So, as somebody in their mid-20s, have you got any sort of thoughts about what's going on there and why possibly this is happening?
I think it probably goes towards things we've already touched on, the school system. I find, not to completely shred the school system, there are great things about school. I definitely think there's a lot more the school system can do, giving people the confidence with finance. I know, CommBank as well, they go into schools and they have back in the Dolomite days and everything like that. So there are things being done probably at child's level, probably more now that I'm thinking about it. And then when it really becomes meaningful, when you need to start having your own money, you start getting your license and wanting a car, and then it moves to a house. There probably isn't that knowledge there, and I think it does start with the school system. And then, as we discussed earlier, for me, progressing through university and progressing up the age ladder, I went into the financial world. So I was definitely more open to it, and it was coming at me, I guess, even if I wasn't open to it, because I'd chosen that path. So I feel like that expedited my knowledge, whereas someone that's gone into the creative world or teaching, they might not have that knowledge. So yeah, I think definitely school. And then I feel like at my age, there's probably limited experience. Not everyone is in my situation and has been able to have, those examples of a car, of buying a house, buying shares. Like, not everyone has had that experience yet. And I guess, like how you mentioned, your guests are normally of the older demographic and more likely to have had the time and the money and the effort to have put into those strategies and those successes, whereas at my age, majority probably haven't got a house or anything. So we simply haven't had that experience or needed to have that literacy to get there.
And I think that's actually key is experience, and that's what we've got to understand. So when they do research on literacy, they always find that people that are older have a greater literacy, per capita on average. And I think it isn't because people that are older are smarter than people that are in their 20s. It's that they literally have purchased a house. They literally have purchased a car. Maybe they've done a lease with a car. Maybe they've done different things. And so they've actually learnt through that experience.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's hard. You've got a choice now. You can either learn through experience and wait till you get to 50 and then have a good idea of some of these things, or you can actually get out there yourself and actually start to give yourself some knowledge,
Yeah.
I think it's also a little bit of that we're living in a world now which is very fast-paced, and do you think, Hamish, that finances and the financial world is getting more complicated as we go on? So it's actually almost more important that you spend some time investing yourself in that. And I would think that's not just in finances, that's in everything. I mean, even if you go something like art, do you know what I mean? If you went to university and you wanted to be more creative, 30 years ago, it was you in a pottery whirl and painting, whereas now there's that whole digital media side of things, which is very in-depth and quite hard to understand and quite hard to learn and quite hard to go through. I think it's sort of like that in every subject, in every facet as time goes on as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to actually probably come back with something a little bit different here. I mean, I think
you disagree with me.
Well, to me, it's that there's a lot more competition for your headspace.
Totally, yes.
So, and yes. If I think of just, forgive me, Tilly, when I start sounding like a parent here, but when you think of the 20 years ago, or when we were growing up, there was this whole, well, you could either go and run out and play outside, or you could read, or you could watch TV, all right? So we didn't have...
You could watch what was on TV.
The internet.
At that time.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
Was it.
That's it.
Do you know what I mean?
So we didn't have, the internet, all right? And so all of a sudden, this internet's evolved where, now we've gone from just even thinking about how much time do we spend on a device each week, right,
sure.
of some context, and how much of that time are we putting into developing ourselves from a finances point of view,
or any point of view,
right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you get into this concept of, well, did as the generations change, is there the same level of confidence that we can do these things? So, and I don't know necessarily what the answer is here, but my guess is that there's probably less confidence. People are probably thinking less about the future today than what maybe they did 30 or 40 years ago. And so, and I don't think that's changed overnight. I think it's been a gradual thing where, it's just slowly changed. We wake up and again, one of the, sometimes you can see in the media or you hear about the youth not having this confidence of where the future lies, whether it's from an environment point of view or whether it's from a government point of view or whatever it happens
finances.
To be. Yeah. I mean, would you agree with any of that? Or?
I would absolutely agree. I really like the phrase you started with, the competition for the headspace. It does. It's almost like the noise gets too much and then you can't think about the future because there's so many things in the present, I suppose. And like you said, even if it's art or if it's finance, like there are so many people with their own opinions coming in, and it's hard, I suppose, to filter through all of that information. It's more bite-sized information, I suppose, than, like you said, previously when you did sit down to go and watch TV, it'd be that one channel, but now you have to flick through.
Oh, no, there was three.
Three channels. But now you have to flick through so many services, and then there's TV shows and movies.
Totally.
There's too much. Yeah, it probably is that brain fog for being too much. Yeah, I would absolutely agree.
I often say it's a bit like, I know COVID sort of, stopped this a little bit, but it's back in the day we had buffets, you go to a restaurant and there'd just be food everywhere and you could choose it. How often did you see someone standing there looking?
Oh, that's me.
Yeah, they're like, I just...
Too much.
I don't know which one am I going to go through first? I don't, they're all good.
Definitely.
And I think that's part of the issue is that we just have this smorgasbord of information and none of it's really bad in its own...
Absolutely.
Thing. I mean, if you only eat honey chicken for the whole night, maybe it's not going to be good for you. In the same way, if you only do TikTok for, 3 months, it's maybe not going to be good for you. But it is that. It's that overloading of information, and it's that overloading of what the options are.
Yeah.
It's almost that paralysis type thing where you've just got too much information to be able to make a decision.
Agree, and it's kind of hard to snap out of that, but definitely you need to snap out of that paralysis and be very intentful, because on the other end of that is, I think if you are very intentful in what you're looking for and what you are absorbing, podcasts like this can absolutely help you so much. So, and I guess even in that sense, there's so many people doing podcasts now. So you've just really got to be meaningful in who you're selecting and who you're listening to. And I am guilty of scrolling on TikTok, but you do need to just snap out and go,
TikTok was made for me. I'm terrible.
I'm so bad. It is good in its sense, but sometimes I sit there aimlessly scrolling. You need to snap and then go and find what you came on there for. Or
15-second memory, it's perfect. It's perfect.
It is good. It's good. It's actually probably very bad for my memory. I already have a bad memory. But yeah, definitely agree. The competition for the headspace is insane, but I guess it's your level of effort to snap out.
I think something you brought up there is really important. So I know when I went to university and you wanted to read a research, you would look at the journal that you were reading, and that is how you made the decision as to whether it was a good or a bad research. You could then look at the statistics of the research and how many people are involved and, what the p-values and so forth. But really, you're looking at the journal and going, is that a reputable journal to be able to use? Whereas now, I remember my son came to me and goes, how do I know which information on the internet is good?
It's true.
Is reputable, is whatever, because, it is getting even harder and harder to go, is this a good podcast? Is this a good website? Is this information correct? Or is this guy just sprouting something that he just doesn't even know, and it just sounds really good because he's so excited about what he's talking about, and you get, caught up in the excitement, and before you know it, you've bought 4 toasters and you didn't even want a toaster. You know what I mean? Like,
agree.
It is really hard to do that. It's a whole new universe compared to 30 years ago. We had 3 channels: ride your bike outside, go for a run, or tease your sister. Like that. It's a very different environment, and I think that is part of it. Is we just have so much information now. You're right. You just have to snap out of it.
Yeah. And
I think that's one of the themes a little bit about tonight is it's interesting the way you talk, because so often people are looking for the fast, easy road to buying a house.
Yeah.
Whereas you're saying, no, I saved. I had buckets and I put money in that bucket, and that was my house bucket.
Absolutely.
And I didn't go buying a car with that bucket, and I didn't go overseas with that bucket. My travel bucket was a different one.
Yes. Yep.
And so therefore that's a hard thing to do. It's a hard concept. In the same way it's easy to sit and scroll through TikTok, it's hard to go, stop, I need to look at something that's actually going to be beneficial to me.
Definitely hard. Would absolutely agree with that. I guess it goes to everything, being really meaningful and potentially slowing down in this fast-paced environment and making sure your decisions are impactful where they need to be.
So, so far in your long life, all right, so have you had any people that you've looked up to in the past? Like, where, if you've needed advice, where have you gone to? I
noted that question on the script, and I feel like I don't have people that, I think of like celebrities or something, or someone famous or famous Australian. I don't really have that. I probably should add to that and have that. But I guess it's more family. Like, obviously I've often gone to my dad for practical things like car things and everything. I mentioned my auntie and uncle before. I've gone for them for help. My network of friends and everything like that. It's more I look up to, I guess everyone probably they put on their best foot forward, so it's probably hard to depict what I'm going to say, but the people that are just really financially sound and not having to sacrifice other areas of their life to be sound. I just really want to be comfortable in this life financially, and that also being backed physically, emotionally, mentally, everything. So that's what the people that, that are just really financially sound. I do like nice things and pretty things, so I want to have all those things. And I know I, in some sense, am quite material, but I'm proud of that I can strive for those, to have those big dreams and take on that. So it's more the place and the mindset rather than the person.
So I'm going to go one step further here, okay. All right, and that is, so you talked a little bit about the last 6 to 12 months and the growth that you've been on, and developing your own sense of confidence. So where did that come from? Where was your go-to to go on that journey where you sort of, obviously at a point you went, okay, I need to work on something here.
Yeah.
So was it friends, family? Yeah.
Being very vulnerable. It was a breakup.
Right.
And that led me to be okay on my own again. I thought I am a very independent person, but it took that to make me realise I thought I was independent, but I really needed to look in and be comfortable within. And it did go, friends and family, of course, they were majorly there for support, but I sought external help from a psychologist. And again, I guess it goes to that, the power of knowledge piece. And I'm more than happy to talk about it because I think people do need to be more vulnerable, and I've even learned in myself to be more vulnerable. But the knowledge piece, you go to a mortgage broker because you need help with a home loan. You need help mentally or emotionally. Source that knowledge. You don't have to do it all yourself. You can absolutely source the knowledge. So it's definitely come from that. My psychologist has recommended books and just really learning about self-confidence and being happy within. So a lot of that's come from healing journey and confidence journey, and it's incredible. It's really good.
Excellent. No, and look, I think that's the point that we're trying to also emphasise, is that it's hard to do it on your own. And it's almost, I would almost go as far as saying it's wrong to try and do it on your own.
Yeah, and I think how I just touched on my independence, I probably do try and do a lot on my own. And in this last 6 to 12 months, I have opened and touched into my vulnerable side and have sought help. It's okay to not be okay. It doesn't mean you're forever not okay. And absolutely,
it's a good line. I think somebody should use it.
I feel like I've heard that before. Absolutely. But to source that help and to let people know you're not okay and you need that support extra on that day. Absolutely, and it goes to the day-to-day things and then to the bigger things like buying a house. So
one of the things we've realised is that, and it's part of this, call it this financial literacy that we're working on, is that you've talked a little bit about the maths of money. All right. So, and I can sort of tell underneath that obviously there's been this journey that you've been on, but one of the things that we've really want to empower people with is the psychology of money. All right.
Yes.
So it's understanding your biases and how you make decisions and your journey growing up and how you approach life. All right. And and whether you're the person that says money's just not important at all, there's a journey behind that.
Yeah,
right. And then the person that says, no, money is really important, there's a journey behind that as well. And quite often it takes time for us to realise that, there's a reason why I behave this way. All right. So, and I think the quicker you can understand those reasons, the quicker you can actually really own what that journey is, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. And having someone to even bring that to your attention is incredible. And I know on the script it was something about money being happiness. My mum would be so mad at me. I've always said money does bring me happiness. And she's always said, no, it's not about that. But I truly, I think that's where part of my journey is, it brings me comfort. As I mentioned, I want to be comfortable. I don't want this life to be super hard and financially strained. And I think I wrote that in my notes, that it does bring happiness, not in the sense that, I'm rich, I'm happy. It's what it can bring you, what it can buy you, the experiences. I recently bought a gift for someone and I got so happy of giving someone that gift. So I think the comfort and the stability that money can buy you is what I look for. And that's absolutely part of my journey. I want to be comfortable, and money can bring me that, which doesn't equal happiness, but it can work towards happiness.
I think it's that idea that we need to move away from this idea that you want money and start looking behind that to say, no, I want security.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I want to be comfortable. I don't want to be stressing about, can I afford to pay the rent?
Yeah.
Can I afford to pay school fees? Can I afford to fill my car with petrol? Can I afford, and that's what you're actually talking about. It's not about the dollars. It's actually about, do I feel happy and secure in where I am? And, I think that's about choices as well, making those hard decisions and saying, for instance, I'm really okay with the house that I have. I don't need to go and buy a house that's worth, $300,000 more. That's 4 meters closer to the beach. Do you know what I mean?
Really stretch you there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really happy to buy this car rather than this car because I'm actually going to be saving myself $20,000 or whatever. Yeah. Or I want to go overseas on a holiday, but how about I go to Bali rather than Europe?
Absolutely.
I'll leave Europe for 5 years or 10 years later. Do you know what I mean? So it's making those choices and being comfortable with that. And I never forget my father actually saying to me when I was young and I was looking I'd had a car and I'd finally paid it off, and then I was looking to buy another car, and he was like, why are you buying another car? Your car's fine. And I was like, no, it's old and I don't like it, and I wanted a nice flashy, newer car. And I didn't take his advice. I actually went and bought the more expensive car. But the pressure that put me under as a 25-year-old person was a lot, and my ended up being that paying that off over that next period of time was actually it took so much joy out of my life because I made a decision to buy something that I could afford, but therefore then I now couldn't afford other things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it is about making those hard decisions and going, hang on, if what I want is comfort, if what I want is security, if what I want is not to feel pressured to make these repayments, then let's purchase the things that are within our current ability.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that sentiment. I think also going to that as well goes back to earlier conversations about savings, and I've set up my savings, for example, like with bills. I pay into bills my bills account every time I get paid, so that when a bill comes, I don't even think, I don't even blink. It goes out. And so I think, you're right, finding where that's come from and why, and then it kind of does probably empowers you more to make those right choices when you really do, like you said, get to the crux of what you're in this for. Does empower you, probably makes it a bit easier. But choice is hard.
Look, I recall I was about 30 years old around that, or maybe a bit younger, maybe 28, when someone first brought that idea to my mind of having an account that's for your direct debits.
Yeah.
Just a direct debit account, work out how much money needs to be in there per month, and that's what you put into it every single month, and actually have a month's worth ahead. So, the money that's in there is for next month, not for this month. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So you're always ahead. And it took me quite a few months to save up enough to do it. But the stress that it took away from me, the anxiety that it took away from me, when all of a sudden I never had bills. I had spent so many years trying to find money to pay the electricity, to pay the phone, to pay this, to pay that. And then all of a sudden, just by literally creating an account that has a month's worth of bills ahead of time. So at any one time you could have 2 months worth of savings in there for the bills, or a month and a half, depending where you're up to. But that actually just revolutionised my own anxiety and stress towards money.
Yeah, I was the exact same, and definitely vouch for going even further and going ahead again and setting that up. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, you're more disciplined. You probably have 3 months in there, don't you?
No, not at the moment. I wish I did. Bills aren't my priority at the moment. So, but it's still there. The account's still there.
Yeah. But even that whole thing of if you get paid weekly or fortnightly or monthly or however you get paid, if you've got a bill that is a yearly bill, having that money in there. So, a car is a great example. A car might cost you $2,000 a year for rego insurance and doing bits and pieces, so how much is that a month?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. Put it in.
And it goes in there. And so when the car wheel blows up, you're like, oh, hang on, that's right here.
Absolutely, yeah. And even regardless of the financial stress of it as well, the time, if you have to physically get a bill and then physically pay it, that's time. I don't have time to do that. So it's direct debited or outsource the knowledge. If you don't know how to set up a direct debit, get someone to help you and teach you. But direct debit, I'm all for it.
So one of the things around money, obviously, there's our expenses and how we manage things. All right. So, but then there's also, okay, how do we earn money and our career? So, again, I guess thinking about this question in the sense of, okay, so you've been on this career and you know, and obviously you're about to embark on a new journey overseas for a little while. But, you know, talk us through, I guess, your experiences so far, basically from a career point of view, how you found, you know, work so far and thinking about what that career looks like, you know, the next step, you know, some of the things that you've come across, but also I'm actually really interested to hear about that from your perspective as a young lady as well, in terms of how you see the world and maybe some of the challenges you've had.
Yeah, I definitely think, so obviously, I guess, delving into how it all started was uni, and there was that one course, I forget the name, but you've said it's becoming compulsory now, which is amazing, to get real life experience.
We'll call it an internship.
So I obviously was privileged enough and grateful to have the internship here with Vision Property and Finance, and obviously that delved into the mortgage broking side as well. So that's where it started for me. That I give credits to that being my first corporate world experience.
Oh gosh, corporate world.
Yeah, literally. So it was great. Yeah, so it was great to start that way and start, I think, slowly as well with the internship. I think that helped and pushed you into it. And then obviously it ramped up. As you mentioned, I went to the graduate program with CBA and then took a full-time, well, the graduate program was full-time, but then secured a full-time position outside of the graduate program. I think the challenge for me, I guess, like you said, being a young lady in this world, not necessarily lady, just being young, I was always quite scared of the corporate world, and not scared of adults, but scared of having to always have your game face on and, you know, always be professional. And, you know, I try and always be professional and present well, but you really just realise the adult world is just a big kids world. Everyone's still out to have fun. You have so many laughs in the office. Like, some of my best friends at work are like 60. Like, it's incredible, and it's crazy to actually take a step back, well, at least for me in my office and the culture we have, to actually look at that and be like, wow, that's incredible. Like, you wouldn't, in your normal friends circle, have that much diversity in age, in all areas of diversity. Like, you wouldn't come across those walks of life in your normal friendship groups. So I think breaking down, like, yeah, I'm not sure I was scared, but definitely, I don't know, I had concerns about coming into the corporate world. I knew it was what I wanted to do. I was going to do it always, but it was scary. And I think breaking that down, and I want people out there to know that, like, with young listeners to know it's not scary. Take that leap. Like, you can have fun. Like, I have so many laughs at work, and it's incredible. So I guess that's that side of it.
So have you had any times here, like, because what I think, and coming back a little bit to your comment about just earning that little bit of extra money, is one of those things is to sort of say, okay, so how do you get outside your comfort zone a little bit and, you know, talk to your boss about what that next role looks like?
Yeah.
Have you had to do that yet?
I've had to, yes, yeah. Definitely, I think on that note as well, pay negotiation. I think that's a big thing. It's very scary again. I feel like, I guess my sentiment now that I'm thinking is, scarier than it seems. At every step I've had to take, it's definitely scarier than it seems. And again, coming back to knowledge is power. Like, I probably had my pay negotiation was before, like, career chat, I would say. I guess rolling off the grad program, it was kind of destined that you go into the role I am actually, well, not the property side, but more a diversified financial analyst. It's kind of just what you did, and I was comfortable with that. That's what I wanted to do, so I didn't really have to negotiate. But once I was in that role, that was the first role I had to negotiate pay, and that was very scary, and being young and everything, and just research. I actually researched to the point it said Thursdays are the best day to ask your boss for a raise. So it was Thursday that I went and asked my boss for a raise. It did. It's unbelievable. And it's, it's negotiating that, obviously very difficult. And I think a few of times in this podcast I've said drink big, and I was like, there was a certain amount of pay that I was comfortable with, and there was a certain amount I obviously wasn't comfortable with, and the amount they offered me was like $2,000 lower than the amount that I would be comfortable with. And I was like, oh, it's pretty petty to go back and negotiate over $2,000. So my dad said, why don't you just step it up and ask for the next $10,000 block? And I was like, what if I got to lose? It could just be a no, or it could be, back to where I was semi-comfortable with. So I asked for the $10,000 more and I got it. So I think the dream big, have the confidence, back yourself with the knowledge as well to go on Thursdays and go for it. And I think, so that was pay. And then coming back to friends as well, like obviously we're all the friends that, my closest friends are all around my age demographic. And so we're all going through this together. And so I've passed that story on to friends, and it's empowered them to also go up to their boss and be like, hey, I want this too. And
all your friends' bosses are listening to this right now going,
we get it.
Remember that Thursday?
Here's the problem. Absolutely. Yeah. But I think talking about it, I definitely am a big person, like I've mentioned probably a few times now. I'm a lot more open. I try and always be open, but I'm a lot more open now. I think sharing experience is incredible. It empowers people, and sharing knowledge, again, a constant topic. I guess then going into career, that was an easier discussion. Definitely, I think even like from here, developing from this into CBA, you are so supportive. Like, I feel like if you have the right people around you, and it's the right culture and workplace and your management, people that will support you to develop, because at the end of the day, it's going to happen. Like if you're wanting it to happen, it will, and your manager should support you in that. It's definitely a hard conversation, like thinking about leaving. I think career development, probably an easier conversation, but in my experience, I have less than a month left in my current role before I take a career break, which sounds pretty wild at 25. I feel like I've had this meltdown. I need a career break, but no, I'm moving abroad. But that was probably a tougher conversation because I am leaving. So, I'm not leaving, I'm not quitting, but that's a whole nother topic. Maybe cut that bit. But anyway, yeah, so taking a career break was probably more of a difficult discussion because I'm leaving the business unit, I'm leaving a gap. They then have to resource and the time in all of that. And
you've already mentioned you enjoy it.
My job?
You like the people, you like the unit, you like, it's not like you're going, so glad I'm out of this place.
Exactly, yeah. So it was, in that sense, absolutely a very hard decision to make. At the end of the day, with the emotional journey, it comes to putting yourself first.
Yeah.
And I know I could stay in the job I'm in now, comfortable, I like it. There is still development where I am now, but I think going overseas, lifestyle, but also career-wise, it's just going to expedite the process is where I see it for myself. So putting myself first, knowing that this is something I need to do, and if they don't support me, that's not the business for me.
Okay, can I give you a line possibly to use next time somebody asks? It was just, look, I'm a really organised person. I'm just getting my midlife crisis out of the way.
Quarter-life crisis, yeah.
Quarter-life crisis, exactly.
I've definitely had a quarter-life crisis.
I like it. I think a point that you touched on, which I think is really important, and I've talked to many of the people that I've mentored and coached with over the years, that and even friends and family as well. Putting yourself out there and saying what you want is really important, because I recall someone who was a teacher, and I could see that they're going to make an amazing head teacher, an amazing deputy principal, an amazing principal, So I said to that person, have you actually put yourself out there and told your boss what you're wanting? And they're like, I think they know. Now, but have you actually told them, And it's funny, as soon as they've done that, next thing he knows, he was in having an interview with the principal to discuss his career progression. Then he was having an interview with the head of because I had a few schools, the head of that, to discuss where he's going to be going. Next thing he knows, there's a position coming up at another school. They've said you should put your hat in the ring for that.
Incredible.
So, and his skill hadn't changed, his education hadn't changed, his, what he was doing in the class hadn't changed. All that had changed is that he had said to people above him, I want to go this direction. And all of a sudden they're like, yeah, we agree. You'd be good at that. And so therefore things started to change and happen. And I think that's really important. If you don't put yourself forward, be it for a pay rise or be it for a career change or be it for to segue to something slightly different in the business, it's not actually going to occur.
Absolutely. I definitely agree and back all of that 100%. And what I've had to tell myself, I guess going back to the sentiment of it, thinking it's scarier than it really is, the worst that can happen is they say no.
Totally.
And then you're fine. You move on. You either stay where you're comfortable, or if that no is too much for you, then you go find another route. I guess, again, that is a privileged path to take. But, yeah, the worst, you've got to ask. There's no harm in asking. And I think it's even, we have development plans, so I think that's great. And I think also something I did note down, I did some development training once, and I can't remember the 4, but it had 4 pillars of people to have behind you, and it was like a hype person, a coach, a mentor, and someone to give you that crucial but challenging feedback. I think, like you said, you were clearly played a pillar in that person's life to say, go and do it. I think, again, going to that sentiment of you can't do it all alone, having someone in your corner is incredible and empowering, and they see things that you don't necessarily see in yourself.
Because if you think of that example, I didn't change his skill level. I didn't change his knowledge. I didn't change what he was doing on a day-to-day basis at work. It was just that encouragement to go, no, you should do that.
Yeah,
that's a really good idea, and you should actually speak it out and then start moving that direction.
Yeah, I also think for yourself in that situation, it's good kudos to you as well. You're paying that forward. You've helped someone in their life. That's incredible, and it feels really good for someone to recognise that without asking. For the person you've gone and helped, and then for you've done this great deed. I think both parties, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I think to add to that, though, because of course that's only half the scenarios, isn't it? 50% of people are going to be a natural move forward in that sort of role. There's probably 50% of people that have some sort of development that needs to happen before they're ready for that role. All right? So
but that's important too, though, isn't it?
Well, if you don't ask the question and you don't get the feedback, right, and then I guess it's up to you then whether you're prepared to go on that journey.
Yeah.
But the last thing you want, and speaking it from an employment point of view, I would say every employer should be wanting those conversations to happen. None of us like the whole, what happens if I have to say no? But if you've got people saying, hey, I believe I want to get to this next step, and whether that's about salary or responsibility or a combination of the two, having that ability to be able to go, well, actually, I can support you getting there, but this is what you need to embrace. All right. And that's part of that journey then. And I guess, that ability for people to go, well, okay, I can't just expect this to be put on a platter for me. I have to prove myself and demonstrate that value if I want to get that extra.
It's going back to those hard choices, whether it's budgeting, whether it's, doing your career progression. It's the same thing. If we use that example, if he had have gone to, his head teacher or his principal and said, hey, I want to do this. And they said, actually, we don't see that you're right for that role at the moment. These are the things that you need to change. Well, then he's now got a choice. He can either go, I'm going to give up my dream of, becoming a head teacher, or he can go, right, I've got to change those 4 things. It's the same with purchasing a house that we discussed before. I want to purchase a house. You go to a mortgage broker. He says, well, you need to remove your credit card. That's got to be gone. Can't be on there at all. As in, not just reduce the debt, but get rid of it. You need to increase your income by $10,000 a year. You need to, do this. And again, you've got a choice. Either you do those things, or you decide that the dream of owning a home is not for you. It's the hard choices that we've got to actually make in life that actually create the movement.
Yeah, and I think, the challenge we've got right now, so, obviously the time we're doing this podcast, unemployment's really low, right? So, and, one of the themes that comes out in the, call it what our ex-RBA person, Mr. Lowe, was doing and that sort of thing, was almost this theme that was saying, okay, I've got to drive interest rates high enough to create unemployment so that the wage increases stop. All right. So of course the interesting thing, in 12 months' time, if I went for a salary increase today, I might get the 10 grand. All right. So, but if I go for the salary increase in 12 months' time, it might be a different environment, and I might have to fight harder for it and really ask the questions about what do I need to do to demonstrate that value. So the challenge becomes we can't expect it on a plate. All right, or not always. All right, so it's got to be that. What's fair and reasonable at this point in time? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think it should be handed to you on a plate. I think people have got to work hard, absolutely, and find that, and you've got to be the right fit. Also, it's not just you've been here long enough. Here's a pay rise handed to you on a plate. No, I totally agree.
And I don't think you would have got that 10 grand if you hadn't have proven yourself.
Oh, God, no.
Do you know what I mean? As in the reason why they didn't come back to you and say, 1.5, is because they went back and went, no, actually, she's doing that level of work already.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So therefore, let's give her a remuneration that is equivalent to what she's already doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But look, on your point with Mr. Lowe, if he had have realised Tilly's point that Thursdays are the problem, he could have just stopped all Thursday conversations with bosses, and there'd be no more raises.
Oh, that's my memo's going out tomorrow. I'm working from home on Thursdays now.
Yeah. Someone's going to walk up to you on a Thursday and you're going to go, no.
Don't talk to me.
No, talk to me tomorrow, please.
You have meetings on Wednesdays or Fridays.
That's right, exactly.
No, it's fair. No. So I guess, so what I'm hearing from all of that, Tilly, is that, so you've got to ask the questions, right? You've got to do your research. I think that's a big thing that came out of what you were saying, really. And I'm just, I think it might be a little bit weird for me to say I'm just a little bit tickled pink by, the comment of saying that you worked out Thursdays. I just think that's fantastic.
Isn't it funny?
That's right. So
I like the fact she did a research to make sure that Thursdays was the day,
and so I guess, am I missing any ingredients there in terms of what, those conversations around career and just being able to get in there that's important?
I think definitely touched on work hard. You really got to have that mindset, I suppose, to work hard and be motivated and enjoy what you do. Like I said, I do enjoy what I do. I think you're never going to be in that work hard, motivated mindset if you don't have some kind of enjoyment in it, even if you're not enjoying it right now, but you're striving to get here and they can't see that, but striving to get higher, and you're not there yet, and you have to get through this to get there. I have a strong work ethic, and it motivates me further, and I'm proud of myself for things that I've been able to do. So work hard's definitely in there.
I think if I can touch on this, you've talked a little bit about being part of a team, and connecting with whether it's somebody that's 60 or 5 years younger than you or whatever it happens to be. I mean, I heard a great question that managers should ask their staff recently, and that is, what are you doing to build your internal network? So, in other words, develop relationships within the business. So, because it's that sense of if people are going to see that you are a valued part of a team, then that has to have value to the business, whether it's corporate world like Commonwealth Bank or at Vision Property and Finance or wherever you go. So do you see that in your workplace as well? Those that are sort of trying to build the team, and possibly there's one or two that you might go, okay, they haven't quite been able to connect yet, or they don't see that as important.
I definitely agree. I love that as a management question. I think that's great, and I love when managers are the one to actually. I think everybody should have their own development goals and plans, or however you'd like to put it, but a manager stepping in is incredible, and asking those questions, I think it's motivating. It's incredible to feel supported by a manager like that, and that they're intrigued by that. But definitely, I have quite a large team. I sit in an office with quite a few people, and you definitely can pick out people, even in past roles and everything, that I feel like you do get there quicker if you do have those networks. And I think, let alone financial skills, like if we're talking about the financial world, whatever that word is, personable skills is interpersonal skills. That's it. is incredible. Like knowing how to talk to people. Like I said, one of my best friends is like a 60-year-old, and being able to like engage with all the different people in the office. I think, especially maybe if you have leadership in your mind to potentially go to leadership one day, having those skills is incredible. And that's also what I've learned, I suppose, in this world, especially when I did the graduate program. No matter how busy someone is or how high up the ranks or important they are, everyone is willing to chat with you. And I was told, you have a grad badge, everyone will talk to you. So I was expecting the day that grad badge dropped off, oh, no one has time for me. Absolutely not. There's so many people that will talk to you, even people that you don't know and you want to connect with through LinkedIn or something. People always have time to talk to you if you are asking those intent, like you're being intent with what you're asking and why you're using their time. I think building, your network internally, incredible. Externally, also incredible. And having those people to look up to, like for your short, medium, long-term goals, absolutely, it's very powerful.
So, Steve, I'm going to hand over to you because you like this last question, right?
So, Tilly, we ask everyone that comes onto the show, what would you tell your 18-year-old self? Now, if we have someone in here who's 50, that's an interesting question to ask. But your 18-year-old self was only, 7 years ago?
Yeah, not long ago.
So what would you tell her?
Thank you for preparing this question earlier because I did need to think of something good. And what I said was trust in divine timing.
Yes.
I am such in an era that I always have had in my mind everything that's meant to be will be. Mm-hmm. And I much more strongly believe in that now. Sometimes it is hard to believe. And again, it's a privileged perspective. But you got to get into the habit of telling yourself that. And like I said, my money kind of became a bit problematic when I was overthinking it. And that gives you a little insight into my life about anxiety and going over things a lot. Sometimes you've just got to take it back and trust in the process, trust in the divine timing. And it alleviates a lot of the stress and anxiety in finances as well, but in life.
So would you just tell her to chill out? Is that what you're saying?
Chill out. Absolutely. I needed
Stop
chill
stressing
out all
and
the
chill
time.
out.
Yeah, I tell myself to chill out all the time.
You need to write that look on your mirror.
I actually have a tattoo that says today, so it reminds me to be present.
I thought you were going to say you had a tattoo that said chill out. I was going to be like, no.
That'll be the next one.
Okay, the next question we do like to ask people is, if you were going to write a book, what would the title be and what would it be about?
I don't know what the title would be. I'm not creative enough to figure that out yet, but it would definitely be helping people with their financial literacy.
Yep.
That's my main goal with being in finance, which is incredible that it aligns with your purpose as well. I just want to help people. There's so many people that just don't understand the very basics. And I think, like I said, money and finances are not your happiness. It isn't, but it can bring you happiness. It can bring you security and stability and joy. So, financial literacy just at the most foundational level is what I would write about and hope.
How about if the title was like, chill out and build wealth?
Yeah, done. Let's write a book.
We'll have you back in at 27. You'll be like, I'm also an author now.
Yeah, add that to the resume.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking to us today. I know that Hamish and I have really enjoyed the conversation and have really appreciated your input and insight into life, the universe and everything.
Absolutely.
So, thank you for coming.
Thank you both. I've enjoyed my time.
Yep.
Great.
Well, look, thank you so much for joining us today. And Help My Wealth, Money Rules podcast is all about empowering your financial journey. And today we've done that with Matilda Barrass. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as Hamish and I have. And we'll see you next time on our next podcast. And thank you so much for coming. Bye.
See you later.
The information discussed by the Help My Wealth and the Money Rules podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only and is general in nature, and it is not advice. It is not intended as a substitute for professional finance, legal or tax advice.
It is aimed to provide a general understanding of each topic and should not be relied upon to make an investment or financial decision. It is strongly suggested that you seek professional advice regarding your own individual circumstances before making a financial decision. Help My Wealth and the hosts of the Money Rules and Money Rules podcast are not aware of your personal financial circumstances. Before making any financial decisions, you should read the product disclosure statement and, if necessary, consult a licensed financial professional. Do not take financial advice from a podcast. In the spirit of reconciliation, Help My Wealth and the Money Rules or Money Rules podcasts acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to past, present and emerging elders. We extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today.